mechanic for each other rider to arrive to the grid and make sure their rider is okay. And as soon as every rider has a mechanic there, we start the countdown again from the 3-minute board. We make an extra warm-up lap, and the race is 1 lap less because of the extra warm-up lap. Starting from the pit lane, so if there's one rider starting from pit lane, that's easy. We just line up in the front row, and the normal start from the grid, the riders go past, and they go past the end of the pit joining road. So it's not past the lights, it's further down. So it's quite a long delay, and then the light in pit lane goes green, so the rider in pit lane starts with some delay. If there's more than one rider, we put them in the order of their qualifying in the pit lane, because it's known in advance. If it's the last minute, the riders come in to the pit lane on the warm-up lap and decide to start from there because, I don't know, the weather or whatever, some bike problem, it's too late to arrange the grid order. So the rule is they arrive and they take the grid position in the order they arrive. In changeable weather, if more than 10 riders do come off the grid or go into pit lane on the warm-up lap and decide to change, if it's more than 10, we say start delayed, stop. So everybody stops, everyone goes to pit lane, set the bike up, and we have a quick start procedure. This is to avoid having so many bikes starting the race from pit lane, just for safety.
Just a little bit, perfect, there. And you please, a little bit more close, perfect, there. Okay? Takeo, please. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Austria as we continue our annual Tech Talk with the second instalment of the Technical Managers Press Conference for 2021. We are joined here today by Ducati's Corse Technical Director, Davide Barana, KTM's Head of MotoGP Chassis Development, Wolfgang Felber, and HRC Technical Manager Takeo Yokoyama. Gentlemen, firstly, thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today. Davide, if possible, I'd like to start with you. I'll ask a few questions to each of you and then we'll hand over to members of the media. Davide, so a lot has changed for Ducati in 2021, a new rider lineup across the three teams, and despite frozen engines, a new and improved Desmos Energy that seems to work well at most circuits. How happy are you with the step that Ducati have made since last year?
For sure. If the happiness is proportional to the position in the championship, we are quite happy, but not completely happy, to be honest, because on the constructor championship, we are quite close to Yamaha. This is good. But the gap in the championship, in the riders' championship, is a bit higher. So it means that we have to work strong again to close the gap. So this is on a mix of a technical and sporting comment. If I have to separate a pure technical comment, I would say that we are quite happy, because it's for a brand, it's very rewarding to see a bike that performs very well with different rider with different attitude in terms of riding styles, also in a very different circuit. So quite happy, and this is I think the results that pay back our efforts, not only this year but also in the development that come from the previous years, of course.
Ducati still maintains that top speed advantage in many cases, and is still obviously very, very good on the brakes in terms of its braking stability. Is the DNA of Ducati changing now slightly, though, as MotoGP develops, as it seems riders have the ability to turn the Ducati perhaps better now than in previous years?
Well, as you said, Ducati has been always considered now very strong in turning, and this maybe should be right in certain period at least. But as I said before, and also in this kind of interview previous years, we worked a lot on the chassis as long as on our strength point of the engine aerodynamics to improve the turning of the bike. This is quite a time-consuming process, because it takes different steps. You have to prove that something is working before to move to the next step. And also with the limited days of testing with the official rider, this keeps the process even longer. But again, I think that the result we are seeing now is the result of this long process. They start to pay back. And also, of course, the new lineup of riders helps, because, of course, the attitude of the package, Rider Plus bike, is a addition of the attitude of the rider and the attitude of the bike. I think our lineup of riders at the moment are quite good. Some of them very good in turning and ability to turn the bike. So it is a combination of these two factors, for sure.
Davide, thank you very much indeed. We're now going to turn our attention to KTM and speak to Wolfgang Felber. After a groundbreaking year for KTM in 2020, this season looked a bit tough in the beginning until the new chassis was rolled out in Mugello, and some great results since then. How would you rate the first half of 2021?
Of course, we had higher expectations, of course, when we were looking back to 2020, especially to the final races of the season. So we have been a little bit run out of when we came to Qatar and saw that we had a drop in performance. There were several technical aspects which we were able to fix quickly. I say within 3 or 4 races we had direction to fix it. And one of our strong points at KTM, I believe, is our development speed and our motivation and mentality. So this was basically, during the first 4 years of that project, it was a constant progress from nowhere getting closer and closer and closer to the to the competition, to the top. This from end of last year to beginning of the 2021 season was our first real performance drop, and I am quite happy, and we think this is the most important thing looking back, that we all stayed calm, the development group back in Austria, in Mattighofen, but also our teams. We didn't go nervous, which would have made the situation much more tricky and difficult. So finally, I think we fixed it, and we are on our way back. Of course, it's for us, it's still a journey to go. We don't know how long it will take, but to reach our big target, to catch up that World Championship title for KTM. But I would say we are back on the rails.
You mentioned there that the development speed of KTM, and in the space of 1 year, KTM are now a multi-winning manufacturer in MotoGP, something I'm sure you're all incredibly proud of. What would you say at the moment are the biggest challenges that you face today, now that perhaps one issue was fixed, that you hope can be solved as we advance through the second half of the season?
As a development engineer and a more technical guy, I'm of course speaking more about the bike, and still two weak points we have to fix. We have to make our bike more versatile, to be competitive on any track, on any temperature, on any grip condition. This is one thing, and the other thing is, of course, we have to improve our bike to be faster in qualifying, because I think we have a pretty good race bike in the meantime, but we struggle a bit to be on the front of the grid, and this makes it more difficult for us to finish races with podium results.
Wolfgang, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, time to speak to Takeo Yokoyama from HRC. Takeo, it's been a bit of a challenging year. It's quite clear to see that from the rider comments and perhaps some of the results that there is still some work to do in order to get Honda where you perhaps expect it to be and where you want it to be. How would you analyse the first 10 races of 2021?
Well, the first part of the 2021, I mean, sure, it was difficult. It's not like how we wanted to be. We are Honda, always our goal is to be on top, and where we used to be in the past. We started like this, but we didn't achieve, at least in the first part of the season. So, yeah, I mean, I cannot evaluate very well, but I don't know. I mean, what can I say? We just keep working and continue, and I mean, trying to do the new things, and yeah, that's all.
You have some great riders within HRC. Nakagami's doing a good job. Alex Marquez, of course, showed his capabilities last year. Pol Espargaro has shown, of course, in the past with KTM. Perhaps just not quite there at the moment with that Honda. But how important has it been to have Mark back, the feedback from Mark on the 2021 Honda? And has his physical condition perhaps changed the way you work in terms of development on the motorcycle?
So you asked two questions, you know? So for Mark, obviously, well, he was not racing last year, and especially on the rear tire that Michelin introduced since the start of last year, he has been missing the experience and I mean racing on that type of tire. And he came back in 21 season, and immediately his feedback was quite good, but at the same time, I would say he's still in the middle of the process of understanding perfectly the rear tire. And probably, I mean, partly due to his imperfect condition yet, but still his feedback, I mean, he's a Marc Marquez at the end, and his feedback is very, very good. And it's contributing a lot, and his feedback has given us so many new ideas that would be supposed to be coming in the second part of the season. So we just continue working like this. And for the other riders, like you said, Alex, Nakagami, Paul, I mean, they are all top riders for sure. And this year, we have the same bike, the same latest bike for all riders, not only Mark and Paul, but also Alex and Taka all have the same bike. And yeah, with different riding style and different way of using, different setting, preference, all of this. But at the end, the feedback is very important, and we are working with all of the information from them.
Ducati, thank you very much, gentlemen. That's all from me. Time to now pass over to questions from the media. And first up is Manuel.
Yes, this is Manuel Pesino for Motorsprint and Riding Sport in Japan. I have a question for each of you. I will start with Takeo-san. Takeo-san, do you know exactly the problem that Honda is facing with the bike? If you can share this, and if you think that this can be solved during the season while the racing is going on.
Exactly the problem of the. Well, it's clear that we are having problems. I think it's more than clear. We are behind the others. It's more than clear. What is exactly the problem? I still believe that the biggest problem for us is to take the maximum benefit from the tire. Like I said, the rear tire that Michelin introduced from last year. We are ongoing. I think we are improving. But at the same time, I mean, compared to the others, we have not reached to the good level as much. So, you know, I think you can, I mean, some of you can also see from outside that we are trying the new things, new ideas. Then all of them, or most of them, I would say, is just to take the maximum, or to take more, the potential of the rear tire. You said, is it possible to fix it in the season? Well, what can I say again? I mean, we just continue working. Every race, we will bring something new. I mean, sometimes from the hardware, sometimes from the electronics control or whatever, the idea, or even the riding style. But we will keep, I mean, working and see if we can reach to the same level as the others, or even better. We will see.
Thank you. I have a question also for Mr. Wolfgang about Danilo Petrucci has said that it is clear that the KTM doesn't work for a tall guy like him. Okay, he said this, I think. Do you agree with this?
I would say yes. The story is, if you design a MotoGP bike for its geometry and ergonomics, of course it's designed more for the average size of a rider. And except Danilo, all our other three riders are pretty similar, pretty equal. So it's difficult for Danilo to find a way with our bike, of course. But we are not in a position to build an exclusive bike for him. That's simply not possible, and also not possible by the rules.
Didn't you realize when you hired him?
Well, I did not hire him, but I appreciated when he joined us. I was not expecting it that much of a problem.
And my last, sorry for Davide. Davide, you said that you are working with, you have basically 4 top riders now, right? And each with one style. As an engineer, isn't it complicated to work with 4 different, instead of concentrating the effort in just one and progressing faster?
Well, I think study is an advantage because it's this kind of, we say, biodiversity of riders helps a lot in development of bike, because if one is stronger in a certain point, another in another, for example, we say, if you have a rider that is not particularly performing on braking, it will be more sensible in that phase if you do something to improve in that phase. And he would be happy if you do something. But I think also will benefit the rider that is strong in braking, and usually he didn't ask for more because it feels already strong. But and it is a compensation mechanism, helps to improve the bike overall in all the aspects and not focus just on one thing or another.
Thank you.
Giovanni Zamagni, Moto IT from Italy. I have two questions, one for Takeo and one for Davide. Takeo, you said before that all the riders have the same bike, but it seems we knew that they have some different chassis. You can explain better this situation? Thank you.
Well, yeah, I said it. I mean, all the riders started the same bike, let's say. You know, because it's a common way of saying that 2020 bike, 2021 bike, like this. So in terms of this, we have started, I mean, all riders started from 2021 bike, obviously. While in the past, for example, Taka was many years on previous year bike. But this year we started, I mean, all riders started from the same bike, let's say 21 bike. But then after this, because of the problems that we are facing, like Manuel said, we are introducing many different, you were talking about chassis. No? Well, but not only chassis, but many components we introduce, and sometimes one is fitting better for one rider, but another option is fitting better to another rider like this. So at the end, for riders, I mean, it's true that, for example, this morning FP1 here, all riders were having different setting, different components. It's true. So I said they are all on the same bike, but it's not completely true, of course. But you know, I think it's normal. Yeah, but yeah, we just keep, I mean, bringing new things, and we just make the judgment on each rider.
Okay, the question for Davide. Davide, do you think that this Ducati is the best Ducati of ever?
I don't know. I think Ferrari said that the best car will be the next, no? I think so. It's the same also for us. We as I said before, we are quite happy. Anyway, technical speaking, I think because I see the rider, different riders that perform well, we are performing better. Also in track, where historically we were not so strong. So we are still at some point where we have to be better for sure. But the best bike, I don't know. We have a lot of idea to implement. So I think the next one will be better for sure.
Niki Kovács from Nemzeti Sport Online and Motor Review Hungary. Takeo-san, here. Giovanni almost asked my question, but let me ask in a different way. So last weekend, last Sunday, it was only Mark riding with a different chassis. Clearly there are other components as well, which maybe we cannot see, but this one is quite visible. And Mark said to me that Honda asked him to ride with his chassis to gain information as much as possible. Why only him? Are you planning to give it to the other riders as well? Because from the outside, this looks like, again, that you are looking for the solution again, let's say, mainly for Mark.
Well, it's true that last week Mark was on different chassis, yeah. But this is the one that we have produced in the summer break time. I mean, this year we had longer summer break, which was five weeks, no? But to design and to make new chassis in 5 weeks is not so easy. So we could bring only one unit. Looking at the adaptivity of each adaptation of each rider. I mean, we were evaluating which rider should be the first to try this, and in this case, on this concept of the new chassis, we have decided to ask Mark to try this. And it was also a risk because we had only one unit, but anyway, I mean, we all agree that we are more in the testing phase than fighting for the top position, because we are not there. So testing the new things and getting the information from Mark was what we decided as the highest priority. That's why we gave that chassis to Mark, and we all appreciate. that he gave us feedback, and yeah, it's like this.
And yep.
And yeah, you said the possibility to introduce to the other riders. Yeah, of course, it's a possibility. But you know, these back-to-back races, we continue working. Probably you have seen it this morning, FP1. We continue working on the new chassis, and if we are confident that we come to a good point, then we can make more pieces, more units, and then we try to deliver to the other riders.
And one question for all of you. Also last Sunday, the riders were complaining a lot that basically from tire to tire, even if it's the same compound, sometimes there's a huge differences in performance. If Michelin can't resolve this situation, is there any way that from engineering part you can help the riders in the future?
No. Yes, it seems that the riders are very sensible to the sample of the same spec. So what we can do on the engineering side is to work more close with Michelin in order to set up the quality of the tire. Sorry. And also in terms of management of the tire, in terms of you have a different sample and is a question for sure, but I think the main solution is to work more close with the Michelin to manage better possible the tire selection.
Wow, difficult. I'm not in a position to answer this question really. I've never sat on a MotoGP bike, at least not when it was, with the engine on. And I'm not one of those world-class MotoGP riders. What I know, they are extremely sensitive on any tolerance and difference, not just on the tires, on everything. This is unbelievable what these guys can feel and what small things they can disturb them when they are on the bike. From a technical point of view, I must say you can do nothing. If the tires have tolerances, for sure they are small, but if there are tolerances, you don't have a chance from the technical aspect to react on that. You just have to try to make a very, very versatile bike, which is not as sensitive on tolerances on tires.
Yes, insisting a little bit on this sensible matter with Michelin, because you are all depending on Michelin. I want to ask you three that if performance stability has been an unexpected issue, okay? You just mentioned that there is always a gap, but has it been more than you expected in terms of performance stability?
I would say Honda in general, we are very, very happy with what Michelin has provided to us. And yes, like you said, always there is some variation, some tolerance in any kind of components, which is normal. But nowadays, the MotoGP, you can see from lap time, the competition is so tight. So even a small variation would make a big difference for the racing result. That's why, I mean, in a way, we understand the riders can be more frustrated. But it's the same thing also for example, for the engine performance gap in, each engine from us could make more difference than in the past for riders' view. So, I mean, from engineering point of view, it's our obligation to reduce the gap, to reduce the tolerance always. And Michelin is trying their maximum, and we are also doing our maximum, for example, from our engine performance difference or like this. But in general, I think what Michelin have provided to us is fantastic, and performance is quite good. Also, the stability is quite good. Of course, nothing is 100% guaranteed in the industry. So there is sometimes a failure, sometimes a little, lower performance or whatever. But once again, we are very, very happy on Michelin tires.
The question was for all three? Yes, sorry, it was for all three. The question. About the Michelin performance, if it has been an unexpected issue, if the tolerance has been more than you expected.
Well, I'm completely agree with my two colleagues that the sensibility of the rider is incredible. And not only regarding the tires, but also, for example, engine performance. Wise, they can feel very small difference when they say the engine don't push. They say, okay, we lost 10 horsepower, and then there you can measure very, very precisely via the torque meters, and maybe there is 2 horsepower of difference. Let's say, well, it's possible, but they can feel anything. And on also on the entire side, I'm pretty sure that can feel because everything passed through the tire. The performance of the bike is related 100% of the tire. And in this case, when they complain about the tire is not performing similar to the same spec, different sample, for us it's very, very difficult to see something different in the telemetry, in the data analysis.
Your opinion?
For these tire differences, I already spoke about. I'm not present on every race. I'm back home in KTM's development department for MotoGP. So I don't have, the feeling how big the tolerances or the differences in performance are. But I believe they are super small, like my colleagues say, because these riders are super, super, super sensitive. And there is also other reasons why performance could be different. The grip changes dramatically over a race weekend. Temperatures are changing during the day. Asphalt temperatures are changing during the day. You constantly tune the bike. So this could also have an effect why the tire is feeling different. And I agree that Michelin does a very good job. As we do as a manufacturer, we have to drive everything to the limits. If it's a piston or a cylinder head or a valve or whatever, it's MotoGP. It's the highest level. So we have to tingle the top always as an engineer, like the riders do, and also Michelin has to do. And if you do that, it's really then too difficult to have always the total same quality of performance. Sounds strange, but this is my opinion to that.
So you have to push the things until they don't work, more or less, you said.
Yeah. Sometimes you blow an engine on the dyno because you have overdone it. I think you will agree, huh? As an engineer, we are also kind of race guys, even when we don't sit on the bike. But we have also use all the technology and drive it to the limits.
Thank you.
Hi, gentlemen. Tami Gorali from Sport 5 Israel. I have a question, first question for all. I wanted to know how the COVID pandemic has affected the development and how do you see it coming in the next few seasons and the effect of it?
Well, the COVID.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Of course, we as Ducati, our response was very good and quite impressive. Also, being honest, apart the very first period of last year when COVID suddenly came in, where we closed for about 4 or 6 weeks. I don't remember. Then we reorganized quickly the factory in order to expand to 100% the home working for those where it's possible, for example, for designers or the people that work in office with the simulation, with the CAD, they are 100% at home. And also we have organized the facility, the workshop, in order to respect the distancing and the turnation and all the measures necessary to limit at the minimum the possibility to transmit the COVID. So after the very first phase where we were all quite was a surprise for everyone. We organized, and then I think I'm very satisfied. And how can work well also in this different way. And I think we can continue in this way as long as it would be necessary. I hope sooner or later to come back to the old one way, or at least something in the middle, because I think it's important to keep social meeting, know the people directly, not only via call conference, but at the moment we are back. I think it's almost the same of the pre-pandemic period.
Yeah, for us, for KTM, if I look back, I think we have managed it quite well. First of all, we are based in Austria, and Austria is a small country, and in general, I think that the COVID thing was managed from government side, was managed quite well. So it was less of a dramatic than maybe somewhere else. Inside KTM, of course, for a period of 3 months, we have been on half speed, because if you have to send people at home to work on home office, of course they can do, but the communication is, of course, not as good, and it's really difficult to organize. We basically splitted our people into 2 groups and established a kind of shift system. So when the ones were 1 week on home office, the others went back to the office, and the next week was reverse. So, but this was, we also changed seat orders, for example, in the offices to have a maximum distance between our people. So we survived, and we did not have big drama, but of course it slowed us down on all our developments. That's clear. It costed us 2 or 3 months. Also because all the environment was affected by COVID, like the suppliers and all the cooperation, the partners you work with. So, but I think it was pretty much the same for, I cannot judge the situation in Japan, Takeo, but in Italy, maybe it was pretty much the same. So I don't think that any manufacturer had a big disadvantage or advantage due to the COVID crisis.
Well, advantage, disadvantage, I don't think so. I don't think anybody had any differences. I think what I can say is that we, Honda, it's very, very happy that until now we have continued racing. Of course, some races have been cancelled and rescheduled, or like this, some changes, of course. But I think all the related parties, organizer, FIM, sponsors, MSMA, I'm talking each other, have done really a great job. That this MotoGP motorsport has been in continuously going ahead, which is very good news for us. Then for the development, probably Japan is a bit more complicated at the moment, because still the pandemic has not been, better situation than before. So, for example, like in HRC factory, still not many people can go to the office, and many people are working from home, smart working, online meeting, like this. But I mean, after 1.5 years, we have learned many things, and now we understand how to do even in a difficult situation, how to do the job in the best way. That's why, like I said, within 5 weeks we could have made a new chassis, which was fantastic in my opinion, with only limited number of people in the office, limited suppliers working. But of course, there was some limitation, and that's why inside MSMA, with organizer, we were having many discussions, and we have many special regulations to limit the development where we needed to do like this. So overall, we are working very well in a fair way, and we have reached, we have come to this point, and I hope quite soon we will come back to a more normal way. But yeah, I think that's all I can say.
Thank you. My second question is that we see that sometimes more and more contracts of riders are very long contracts. Is that a plus or a minus from a technical development point of view? Thank you. For all three, of course.
Riders contract?
Long contract.
Longer riders contract. I think there is more plus than the minus, I guess. In Honda's case, for example, Mark have longer contract, and of course we can make a plan with him, and then for longer term, of course, and which is, you know, we can see clear which direction to go for the development like this. It's more easy to make the plan. Yeah, I think. In this case, there's not so much minus for us, I think.
Well, for sure, the longer period of contract will be releasing more stability, so more possibility to plan next steps for the future. But I have to say, anyway, the Mark case is very particular. I don't remember a case of more than 2 years of contract. That is usually the standard, 2 years once, or sometimes depend. So for me, 2 years is okay. If you start to rethink about the renewal with a good advance is anyway a good option. To keep the mutual interest of the rider and the brand at high level, but if you start to discuss the renewal with a good advance, is a good solution too.
I say it's a big advantage to have long-term contracts. Every rider has his special needs, and you have to learn what he really needs to be successful. And this takes a while, and also the bikes are super complex. So to mix this together, it helps if the rider contracts are longer term. Also nowadays, MotoGP is not the rider and the bike; it's a team effort. It's a big group of people assisting every rider, and all those have to meld together and be a team. And if you have the best possible rider or a good rider, if you're happy with him and the rider is happy with the team and the bike, so if you stay for longer, that's good. I throw back the question to you: what's easier for you, to be married with your husband for 10 years or to get a new one every year? What's easier for you? Okay.
Hello, David Emmett from Motor Matters. A question for all three. The 2022 is the start of the next contract period with the manufacturers and Dorna. So that means the technical rules are frozen. But we have to start thinking about 2027, those technical rules, because of the long lead times you have, and also because we could be in for a very big change. The world is changing very rapidly. We saw the IPCC report earlier this year. There's a push to all sorts of carbon neutral technologies. What do you see is the next technology step or what would you like to see for the next technology step in for the rules from 2027? Yes.
Ducati is always in front, so
it's a complicated answer because for sure we all experience a clear trend. But if we look at two-wheel vehicle in general, also in the past, it's difficult for bike manufacturer to be a pioneer in this technology change because it requires a big investment that usually is up to the car manufacturers, and then when the technology is quite mature, can move to the bike with some adaptation. This is for the mass production, but it is reflected almost the same in racing. So we have to be very wise in this transition because it involved for sure a big investment in resource and money. The business of the two wheelers are much more smaller because we had to be we had to do what is necessary, but not overreact and think. Of course, there are different parties that are involved in the manufacturer. They have their point of view, may be different. It depends on the also the organizer, the FIM. At the moment, we are at the very beginning of the new contract that, as you said, it should be quite stable in terms of technical regulation. I think we will start from next year to start to discuss possible way for the medium-term future.
I think there will be no revolution the next 5 or 7 years. There will be no reinventing of the wheel. It will be evolution, development to improve the bikes from year to year by working on small things, small details, small little ideas. The reason is because the rules are made in a way that you are restricted, of course, a little bit like handcuffed. You have the limited tire allocation for development. You have the limited tracks for development, so there's a lot of restrictions which would make it extremely risky from the technical point of view to do something crazy, to do something revolutionary, because it could go totally wrong. So I believe it will continue and go the way it went the past 5-6 years. Of course, the bike will be faster every year, just a bit. But yes, this is, I think, how it will go.
Yeah, I mean, Davide mentioned about car manufacturer. I mean, Honda is a motorcycle manufacturer, but also a car manufacturer, and then it's clear that Honda made a declaration that we are going to the carbon neutrality. I mean, step by step, starting for 20, 30, 40, 50, or like this. So as a company policy, of course, our intention is to follow that direction. So carbon neutrality, carbon neutral world is a big goal for us as a manufacturer. Then, of course, what we can do on the two-wheel motorsport is another thing, of course. But I mean, as long as we, as a company, are participating for the racing, we want, our intention is to follow all the same direction. So, I mean, that's the that's our position from Honda, and probably each manufacturer, 6 manufacturers, have different position or something similar position. But anyway, we need to discuss more deeply. I mean, we have started a little the discussion between manufacturers or also with the organizer like this, because all our interest is to make the better motorsport, with also in line with the motorbike and the car industry. So I think the direction is, I think it's quite clear, but how to achieve it, by which technology, it can be an argument, and that's what we need to go more deeply for the discussion. Yeah.
Imre Pavlovic from Motorsport Aktuelle and Motorrad from Germany. I have a question to Takeo-san. McDowan has criticized Honda's development earlier this year. They said Honda should actually start completely new again with a new test rider, a new team. So Stefan Bradl actually has improved his own performance pretty well while Mark was away. For his own demands, he could improve the bike a lot. Do you think that Honda has to switch anything that Marc Marquez and the other riders can reach better results, or do you think it is the way to go with the existing test team?
So I didn't completely understand your question. The question is, our test team is working well, or it's better to change? That was the question? Or?
Yes, exactly, because this was the point that McDowan brought up earlier this year.
About this McDowan story, I don't know. I mean, I never heard this. So apart from this, I mean, our test team with Stefan Bradl and all the test team members, they are working very well, and we are very happy how they developed the bike. Of course, like I said, we are behind. We are behind the others, but it's not because of the test team or whatever. We still need to do more things, and I'm sure that we continue working like this, like the current structure, and we can go much more forward than we are now. And I don't see, honestly speaking, I don't see any problem from our test team. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Thomas Marcelino from Motorrevue in France. As I'm the last one to ask the question, all the question has been asked, but I have a last one for Davide. A few years ago, Ducati had the idea to join Moto3. Is it still on the table for you?
Moto3 it would be interesting because the possibility to in particular to have a direct approach with the new riders, to know better how they perform from the internal. But at the moment, it's not on our plan to introduce to the Moto3 category.
Thank you.
Hello, Daniel Herrera from speedcafe.com in Australia. I have a question first for Takeo-san. Takeo-san, can you confirm for us, please, which rider or riders have the new chassis this weekend? And if only Mark, does this mean that Honda is still developing its bike around his style?
This week, Mark continued the new chassis, development, let's say. I mean, changing the accessory parts or the setting like this, because there are so many things that we can do. I mean, we say only chassis, but if we change the chassis, we have to change so many things to take the maximum, potential from that chassis. So our conclusion from last week was one race week was not enough. That's why we continue working on this configuration. That's why Mark is having the chassis. And what was the second one?
The second one was, does this mean that Honda is still developing its bike around his riding style?
It's yes and no. I mean, of course, Mark is the is a champion. I mean, he's the #1 rider. It's clearly for us, and we need him to win races. But at the same time, Paul, Alex, Taka, they are all good riders, so we have to work also for their feedback. But honestly speaking, the feedback from all 4 riders is not very different. And of course, when we have to make some decision, we have to evaluate very well which direction to go ahead. But in general, the feedbacks are not so much different. And that's why I'm quite confident that this time only Mark is having the new chassis, and we are working with him on the setting and accessories like this. But once we achieve to a good point from that chassis, then if we deliver that chassis to other riders, then the other riders' performance will be also improved. I'm quite confident for this.
Thank you. And a question for Davide and Wolfgang. We've seen the announcement of the new chicane at the Red Bull Ring that you will race with next year. What will that do for the competitiveness of your bikes, having that chicane in the middle of a long straight here?
Oh, difficult to expect what it will change for the performance. I think nothing. It's 1 chicane more. It's 2 corners more.
Yes, also from my side, I don't see specific things to do about that.
I think it's good to have this chicane because this section is very tricky, and it puts a lot of load also onto the bikes because it's I think the only corner worldwide which is more than 300 km, but in lean, and there's a compression on that spot of the track, so it makes it almost impossible to steer the bike. So if the speed is reduced there and there is a chicane, I think for the security of the riders and the track will be just beneficial. For the performance of the bike, or if it fits better to a Ducati or KTM or Honda, I have no answer so far. I don't think that it will change anything dramatically in the balance of performance between the manufacturers.
Yes, so.
Sorry, go on.
No, just saying I agree with Wolfgang that anyway, also here, sure, is a good track for Ducati, but I think it's not so easy as it was 3-4 years ago. So I think
still winning, huh?
Still winning, but maybe always we're struggling a lot to win. So I think, but I think we could perform well also introducing changing the track because safety is the first thing we have to think about.
Okay, this is a question for Mr. Takeo Yokoyama. We are talking about chassis, new pieces, new parts, and from the outside, it looks like the relation between the electronics and the engine has reached a top. Is HRC considering to change something in its engine, or changing, I don't know, modifying the existing one to put on the ground the power that it has? And could it be an option, losing top speed to get a better performing of the bike? Thank you.
From the regulation, the engine development has been frozen. I mean, from last year to this year. So everybody have the same engine this year as last year. That means actually we are having 2 years of development, with of course some limitation from the pandemic, with the resource and budget and all of these restrictions. But anyway, 2 years is 2 years. So what we can try to do for next year's engine really can be something more dramatically different than the previous, year-by-year changes. Reducing the top speed or power, I don't want to lose, of course, because still somebody else is clearly faster. So definitely, I don't want to lose any top speed. But of course, for the other performers, braking, corner entry, mid-corner, acceleration, traction, all these are also very, very important. So, of course, our target for next year's engine is to gain a little bit of everything. After 2 years we are still in the middle of 2 years working for the engine development, but yeah, we will try to achieve good improvement.
Davide, Wolfgang, Takeo, thank you very much for joining us here this afternoon. Good luck this weekend and for the second half of the season. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.